Well, I told you we're going to have some other candidates are going to be here, and I'm seeing in the green room, Mr. Holligan is here, and I'm hoping that Miss Eastman, that she comes on as well, and they are from APP, all right, the new party that is formed, right? And yes, I'm seeing that, Mr. Hoyt, that when we quiz, so I want you to have all the questions. Have the questions for Mr. Holligan as he gets ready to come on. And if Miss Lynette Eastman is on, have questions to them. Normally, as I said, someone pointed it out last night, they are speaking to us. Now, we want to, this is the opportunity to ask them the questions, all right? So without any further ado, let me just welcome Mr. Everton Holligan. And, I put your hero, your Everton. What is your correct name? Welcome.
Well, thank you, Marcia. I hope you and the listening audience are doing very well. My mother christened me Everton Holligan, and that was after the cricketer Everton Weekes, I think it is.
Yes.
But since then, I've been on my own life journey. And in that life journey, I've been through many different transitions. And I was given another name as Heru. Heru is an ancient Egyptian name. And it speaks to one who is a healer, one who seeks to create unification, one who fights against evil. You can say that Heru is basically the same person as Jesus in Judeo-Christian theology.
Understood.
Right? But this is basically out of ancient Egyptian philosophy. So that's where you get the Heru from.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, because I was writing the name. I'm like, Everton Heru. What is the name? So that's good. And all of this, I'm sure this is part of presenting you to Barbados, so they understand the history. I mean, that's really, really wonderful. And you are involved in herbal medicine, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my life journey. So I came into the whole alternative or natural health industry for trying to take care of my own health challenges. I basically had bad allergies and sinus problem, severely overweight. Good night, Doris. And so in the process of trying to figure out how to fix these challenges, I came across quite a bit of information, started studying, and then I didn't pursue the whole career in the field of natural health, because truly I wanted to help people because I was helped. So, right. and if you give me a chance to kind of build on this. So while living in the US, I left Barbados and went to the US, and I was really trying to get rid of the allergies and the sinuses and stuff. I stumbled upon a bookstore, started doing quite a bit of research and reading, and was introduced not only just to health from a natural perspective, but introduced to African history and culture in a way in which I never was introduced to it in Barbados, but in a way in which it filled the curiosity. And from that curiosity, I wanted to bring that information to Barbados, because I grew up in communities and villages in Barbados, and I never had access to the information about who we were before slavery, about who we were as a people, the great things that we would have created, the civilizations that we built that existed in peace and harmony, and had all of these different systems that we used to govern our existence. And so I started building an organization where I would pay people like professors and lecturers and authors to come to Barbados. And they would come to Barbados to offer themselves to do these educational forums in Barbados. And that's something that I would do twice yearly while I was living in Barbados. At that time, I didn't have any children, and I didn't have any major responsibilities. And my only thing I wanted to do was to make sure that young people in Barbados had access to information that I didn't have access to when I was living in Barbados. So I started traveling with these speakers, Dr. Lila Africa, Ashwa Kwesi, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Queen Afua. So all of these different speakers, then I would have gone to meet and say to them, I really need to get you to Barbados because we have a community in Barbados that really need to get more of this information so that they can better grow and develop as a people. And so we would come to Barbados and we'd rent places like the Steel Shed, different schools, because we would take these health education sessions right across Barbados, as far as St. James, St. Joseph, St. Philip, and we would just have all of these different educational forums. And so that has been my journey into community work, where as a young man, I had no responsibilities. I was making lots of money, and I took that money and spent it on bringing lecturers and education and books and things to Barbados to help move and evolve the community. So a lot of people who are talking about Dr. Sebi now, I was one of the first people who brought a lot of the information about Dr. Sebi to Barbados. A lot of his videos and stuff, and start disseminating a lot of those health lectures and speakers about African history and culture. That was the work that I was heavily invested in terms of building my communities in Barbados, giving a sense of worth, a sense of value to the youth and to people in Barbados so they can connect to something that's very significant to help us become greater than what people think we can be.
Wow. Everton. I mean, this is, I'm listening to this and I didn't know anything like this. I see you put out your stuff, and that the different products. And I know of people within COVID who said that, you know what, I went to Everton and he helped me, or Everton helped my family recover from COVID, and using all alternative treatments. And I think it's important for us. A show like this is very, very important because we get a chance to know you and realize that in Jamaica we say, hurry come, hurry come, hurry come up. You didn't just appear.
No, it's been a lot of love and hard work over the years.
In Barbados, what would you say? I say in Jamaica, hurry come up. What do you say? What do you say?
we in Johnny come lately.
Johnny come lately. He's not a Johnny come lately. And that's, listening.
Been doing this work for years.
Community work and education and you spending your own money, making those trips and trying to change the society and the thinking of the people. So being, deciding that you're going to be a candidate and be a politician it was like the next step, right?
Yeah, I think my grandmother at her 100th birthday, when the Governor General then came to the house, and I had to do a speech, while I was there, the vote of thanks and stuff. And he said to me, one day you're going to make a really good politician. I wish I could remember his name right now. He was the Governor General. I think he passed away. But even then, at that time, I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested until I really met with Lynette Eastman. She was the one who truly inspired me to take that next leap. And it was based on the frustration that I had. I actually said I wasn't going to vote anymore. This was prior to the 2018 elections. I thought, you know what, this is it. I'm done. I can't see any difference. I remember literally trying to speak to candidates when they were coming through to get a sense of what their plans were for community, what their plans were for the youth. And I always felt empty, almost like there was not enough depth. And in that process, that concern, I knew that they were not equipped to offer the community what the community needs. Not to say that they weren't good people or had great intentions, but the party system of politics is such that it actually, in some instances, can do a great disservice to the people, because it's more of a party-driven apparatus than a person-driven apparatus, and people are disillusioned that they're voting for a government, and to the point where they need to recognize that first you vote for your representative, so you need to figure out what is it that representative is going to bring to the constituency. So when I went to meet Lynette Eastman at a candidate launch for prior to the last elections, I had a good conversation with her, quite humble, quite informative. She actually shook me up a bit because I had some perspectives about politicians and politics that really needed to be shaped right? Because, it's one thing to be upset about what's not happening, but not to recognize what have happened is another ball game. So Lynette shook me up, and she made me know the importance of actually engaging in active politics. And it made sense to me, and it moved me from the state of complaining to the state of being active. Okay,
Wow.
so then after that, I decided, oh, you know what, I'll do this. And I said, well, you know what, Lynette, I'll work in the background until the next election. She said, no, use this elections as the opportunity to understand what is happening, how it happens, the kind of work you have to put in. And so that's what I did. And that's when I ran. Are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. Yes, hearing you. Loud and clear.
That's when I ran for the last elections for St. George North. Okay. So now I'm actually in the St. George South constituency, hoping to capture the seat in St. George South constituency, which is the constituency I lived in, I was born and raised in, and I still live in, because that's where I first encountered the narrative of politicians. And I'll give you that story. A young man into sports, a lot of youth activities, a lot of activities in the community. We always had to play with volleyball nets that had holes in it, and always had to find ways to make to raise money, to buy nets, to buy balls, to buy soccer balls, to buy things for us to be engaged. And I always was the one who would end up writing the letters for seeking sponsorship, along with some of the older members of the community. And so in that, I remember being told at some point by one of the candidates at that time, or actually the MP, who was the incumbent running again, saying that he had the floodlights for our hard court under his bed. He had already gotten the floodlights for our hard court under the bed. Now, this was dear to me. It was volleyball. I was dear to that sport. I really loved it. But of course, if you don't have the facilities, you could only play for a certain time because you don't have any lights. And then if you're training to be professional, or if you're training to improve your skills, then you can't stay in the community and do that. You have to venture into another community that has lights and have the hard court so you can develop on your skills. And so I remember when he said that, and year after year, I was patiently waiting for that hard court. And I think it actually broke my heart a bit, to be quite honest. It was like opportunities that were not being nurtured. And so I always remember that, and I always resented him for that, because that was when I was 13, 14, 15. And I was naive to think that this man actually had the lights under his bed. And this is 35 years later, and we still don't have a hard court in this community that we live in. We still don't have those floodlights. And we still, at this point, the young people who grew up in this community for the last 15, 20 years, they didn't realize that this community produced volleyball teams, soccer teams, cultural groups, etc., because we don't have the facilities to accommodate this. So a few years ago, I would have started moving the furniture out of my house and pushing it into the bedrooms so that the young people in the community can come over and have dance class, have drum class, and have martial art class. So
I love this. Hold a minute. I'm thinking, because when I came to Barbados, I run an art school. And they will tell you, the other one came to my house the other day, one of them, and they said, you remember, they call me Auntie Marcia, how you moved up the chairs and the tables, and you let us dance in your living room, and you cook Jamaican food for us. And I'm listening to, you're a community man. You're a community man. And so this is the kind of thing you want to do for St. George South.
Definitely want to see it happening, because, it leaves a gaping hole when these passions aren't filled, when the opportunities aren't provided for younger minds to keep them employed, to continuously develop their skills, their social skills, their coordination skills, even with the arts and stuff. And when it's not there, then we create this void within our communities where the youth are unable to connect or they don't feel as though they belong. You know, they're just in a mist of not connecting to how to evolve to become their true selves. So each community must have team leaders to help make sure that these things actually do happen. And so these dance classes, they continued in my house for a while, dance and drum classes, but my flooring could not take it. So I started writing to the vocational training board, because the vocational foundation has started running the skills training started running in one of the abandoned schools that was just a hurricane shelter. And when I was growing up, that abandoned school, St. Luke's Girls School, was an essential meeting spot for us. We played table tennis in there. We had dancing in there. So we had quite a bit of things that would happen in there. But when the training board took over the school, that ceased to a degree. So there was hardly any access to it. So I remember writing them to ask them if they'll give us an opportunity to come in and have these classes for the young people in the school, which had wooden floors and was most appropriate for it. But we were declined. And when we were declined, I got so angry, because the classes were getting bigger. The children were getting very passionate and they were interested, but I couldn't accommodate them in my home anymore. And so I had to actually literally end the class, because we couldn't put them to dance on the outside, because there's no facilities in our neighborhood. So that's really just one personal experience in terms of how I see our communities being failed and not properly represented, which then creates a gap for the youth to be connected to their source of empowerment and inspiration and education through community development.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And the truth is, guys, I am totally believing this man. And why I'm believing him, because, you know, Everton or Hiru, I prefer Hiru. You know, it was somebody who worked in a community. I'm from Jamaica. And I hasten to tell everybody, I'm from a ghetto. I'm from Central Village, Big Lane. Okay, that's me. All right. And I have no shame about that. But it took a hero to come into the community to offer theater classes and all these different things to help me to come out of it, so that I didn't become a statistic and started to have, you know, all the children end up in jail and gangs and so on, like the other people around me. So really, I mean, I am totally into what you're saying right now, because when I look at Barbados, Hero, Barbados needs people like you in the communities, because that is what, it's not staying far and throwing money at it and locking up these young people. You know, what if we did that to my family? I wouldn't be here now. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be here as a little girl. That's what we were. We were family. What was it? What do you think our family business was? Come on now, Hero.
What I think your family business? You tell me.
You know what?
Don't let me speculate.
But the point is, though, the point is that someone like a Hero came into the community and changed my life. And so I believe, I totally am sold on what you're saying. Somebody here is saying this is amazing. Rhea Stewart is saying the public really needs to sit and listen to these people before writing them off as not capable, because that's the impression that is given about third-party candidates, that they're not capable. Oh, don't pay them any mind. You know, they're whatever, they're doing this for this. They want fame. They want, you know, they're just not capable, not up to it. But
if you want fame, the easiest thing to do would be to join one of the standard parties. It's easier to get fame that way, because they have an infrastructure that's over 50 years old. And that infrastructure will support the candidates in ways that the smaller parties can't. So fame is when the what we call the third parties or the younger parties is basically a lot of people who have a heart of stone, and it's a lot of core work that has to be done that's already done for them in the other established parties. So once a person decides to join an alternative party or a newer party, they're already committing to harder work than if they were to join one of the other parties and become a candidate then. So the journey through politics is very rewarding. And I was really upset over the last few weeks because I keep hearing politics being referred to as a silly season. And not because I'm, being picky or anything. I just felt as though, we don't need to be insulted anymore as a people. We really don't need to be more. Silly season is not what the people are. The people aren't the silly ones. And if you're saying that the politicians are the ones that are promoting the silliness and calling it silly season, then what are we saying? We're looking for silly people to manage our affairs. Is that what we're saying? It just did not seem right coming from leaders to keep referencing this very important time of selecting the administration of a country that's responsible for the growth and development of the little people, to be referring to it as a silly season. Now, clearly, some things have happened over the years. I see a question here, Marcia. I don't know if I'm allowed to answer your question.
No, go ahead, because I wanted to remind them, because I think people are so caught up in are so inspired by your story and how and your intention. There's such a purity that is coming out of you. And so I don't think that people are asked, they're just caught up in it. Now, can you, please remember, if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask your questions, guys. If you are watching from my personal Facebook page, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to see your questions. You would need to go to the Marcia Week Show. Just type in, search the Marcia Week Show, and watch from there, all right? So that I'll be able to answer, to ask the questions that you have. Okay, so go to the Marcia Week Show so we can see. So go ahead, Hero.
Yeah, so Mr. Hoyt is asking if I believe that MPs should be ministers. And my heart is saying no, Mr. Hoyt. MPs should be representatives of the people, and they should be focused on literally ensuring that the citizens are getting every single opportunity necessary. The citizens within that constituency, they should be getting every opportunity necessary to become their best selves. So MPs, in my opinion, should be organizers of community efforts. And so you have several different community organizations, and your MP should literally become the organizer and pull in all of the leaders of those organizations together to ensure that each community in the constituency is getting access to the resources that they need, getting access to the information that's required, getting access to the government's property if necessary for them to put on a show like Marcia, if they need to put on a show but can't get access to or can't raise the funds to rent a facility. So MPs will fill those gaps. Ministers then is on another hand, could be coming from competent individuals within the specific ministry. But that's all a part of thinking about how to change and transition our political system. And unfortunately, the people who are in it, the people who are the administrators, unfortunately, would not be the ones to change the structure for it to be more beneficial to the communities. So it's in my estimation, I think one of the reasons why I got involved in politics is to destroy the system that it is right now and try to create a new system that is more holistic for the people.
Wow, awesome. Somebody says here, see Shamo McConan Roach. He says, it's a Facebook friend of mine, actually. Welcome, sir. He says, honest response, brother Hero, very good. And Wayne Hoyt is following up with a question. He says, thank you. And if your party is elected, would you ensure that no MP is a minister and move the law to reflect the change?
I can't ensure that, Mr. Hoyt. I can make my opinions heard. I am not the leader of the party, and therefore those are different things that I cannot speak on and say definitively that I would make it happen. That would be me speaking out of term. But I do know that it would be something that I would want to see happen, because I believe it's essential to have those types of structural changes to a system that seemingly not being able to fulfill at the speed that it needs to fulfill for the well-being of of the community. So I'm not saying it's not working. I don't want to be a total pessimist and say the system isn't working. The system is severely flawed and could be improved. I feel as though it's not working as efficient as it should be or could be working in the best interest of the people.
Thank you so much for that. But what about yourself? If you get you win your seat at St. George South, right? Am I right?
Yes, St. George South, correct.
St. George South. So, guys, this is Hiru. If you're just joining us, this is Hiru Holligan, and he is a candidate for St. George South. And this man has such a wonderful heart and a love for the people in the community. And you could tell, I could tell, you could pick that up from people. And this is the second time we're speaking, and I am just bowled over by just your heart for people. And so if you're watching, we need you to share, guys, share the live. This is the kind of thing that we want to see happen, where we hear and somebody up there shouting at you. We can have a conversation, ask our questions, right? I love it. And get to know the people. Get to know the people. So what about yourself? If you were, when you win your seat, let's be positive. When you win your seat in St. George South, Mr. Holligan, and you're given that opportunity possibly to be a minister, will you take it versus being being the representative of the people of St. George South? Will you take it?
My first priority would be representation, not ministry. And if it is that our system is still in that way, like if our party was to win the government and the leaders would ask me to take on a ministry, I would want to comply, but I would also want to make my decision, my perspective known, because I believe it would take some time to go about and make these types of changes. But what I see, the fracture that I see in communities and constituencies is way more important for me than becoming a minister. Way more important.
Yeah, because a lot of the representatives are supposed to, be taking care of the community. Like, for example, here in St. Philip North. I mean, where am I? Yeah, St. Philip South. I'm sorry. I've never seen my representative. I don't even know. I've seen him on TV, and somebody pointed him out to me. I don't know I've never seen him in real life. And a lot of times it's because they get caught up. They have their own businesses, and then they're a minister. So what time would they have to even do anything in the community? Now, I want to go ahead, Hiru. You have a point.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. It just seems like it's a burden. It would be too much. The other thing that I wanted to follow up on, because you did mention it, we didn't get to talk too much about it, but I wanted to back up a little bit regarding the people that we've worked with over the last few months in terms of helping them to become well when they were battled or challenged with dealing with COVID. And we did spend a lot of time talking to a lot of people and sharing information with a lot of people so that they can work hard at helping to become well in the midst of dealing with COVID. And COVID is real. COVID is creating some challenges for quite a few people. Unfortunately, the natural health community has been left out of the solution orientation for that. And so what we have been doing is working closely with our customers and with our people. They would normally call us and explain their situation to us, and we would normally encourage them to start using their fruits and their vegetables and the herbs that their grandmother used to use. Like one of the most efficient one would be the thyme tea, which most people have thyme at home. They can start using thyme if they're having respiratory issues. And so, we've been really successful in helping people on that journey so that they don't become sick and become unwell when they're battling with the COVID situation. So I just wanted to touch on that because you did bring it up, but you can go right ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, right. Well, I want to know specifically, what are you going to do for St. George South? So we know that, I mean, I'm sure the community work is going to continue with the arts in the community, and health and education. But give us some tangible, some other tangible areas that you believe that you want to tackle.
I want to listen first and know and understand what's going on with the hearts of the people and what they want. Because I've canvassed and I've canvassed and I've canvassed, and you hear the same stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be able to hear those stories, understand those stories, and then craft a plan from the bottom up. So making sure that I can meet with people and discuss the future. I think short-term fixes can be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the core issues that we have need to be addressed. And I like to reference the 7 principles of Kwanzaa as a bedrock, a foundation that I can draw on to help to build out community.
Mm-hmm.
So meeting with the leaders within communities is essential for me. I somehow visualize the ability to create these templates, these I call them templates, but I mean to say these groups of leaders within communities that would help to then scout and source the issues in the communities and then go about trying to resolve them from a root up perspective rather than from a top down perspective, like what you just said, not necessarily just throwing money at everything, but actually engaging people so that they can understand the fundamentals of how things are done, so that when we get it done, they're not mistaken as to how it was done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
like people who vote for a BLP candidate from 20 years ago when they fixed the road. But the real reason the road was fixed is a little bit more than just the candidate fixing the road. It's your money that's being used, your taxes that's being used. So fundamental core stuff, but not just throwing things on people and just saying, I did this or I did that, because the praise is just silly in some instances. But actually saying, here's how, and you pull committees together from the communities to help oversee how these things are implemented, so that we can bring the village along with understanding of how things are being done, so that they know what needs to be done, how to agitate in the future to get things done. The communities, the young people are at my heart, the youth. I watch them, I see them, I see them, I see their health fall into the wayside. I see them and I can see in a year or 2 or 5, they're going to be diabetic. I can see the changes in their physical structure that lets me know that this young man right here is going to be a diabetic before he reaches 25. So there's the interventions on many different levels is what community needs, not necessarily just roads and street lights and those kind of infrastructural changes, which is what they need, but intervention to the soul and to the core of young people is important then to then reshape their focus, but then put them on a trajectory for excellence. So how, with that, innovation comes. Because if the youth feel like they belong to the community, and if they're given guidance because the structure is in place for them to follow through, to be guided, then they will have enough of that innovative energy to be the creators that we need, to be the inventors that we need, to provide the foundation development that we need. But it will not happen if after school they're kicked out of school or they leave school, but now have to find their way around, not sure which way to turn, which I can tell you one of my personal stories. I was kicked out of school when I was 15 years old, had no clue what to do next, you know? And basically because I wasn't making the grades. I wasn't a bad child. I wasn't like, fighting a lot and stuff like that. I just wasn't making the grades and just wasn't feeling school, And when I got kicked out of school, I had no idea what to do. There was no follow-up with me from the school. There was no follow-up from the Ministry of Education. So if my father which he is the parent he is, and I appreciate him on many different levels. He had to sit and say to me, but I know that there are a lot of children in my community, there are a lot of people in my community who don't have the father that I have, or the mother that I have. But he sat down and gave me the tough love. And he said, and it wasn't like instructive step by step. It was just listen. Because I remember just lying in bed, being depressed and unsure about what to do next. 15 years old, my entire school life just went down the drain. What do I do next? I don't have a paper to my name. What do I do next? He just sat on the bed after he left home for like 3 days and didn't return because he heard I got kicked out of school. And the third day he returned, it was like he sat on the bed next to me. He said, well, you know, you have to get up and look for work, right? But even that, you know, I didn't know how, where, but I was happy that he didn't take my head off. And I was able then to get up and start doing something. I'm just saying that there are a lot of children, a lot of youth, a lot of young people in the community who are not in that position to have that type of inspiration. As little as it was at that time to me, it was enough to get me going. So then that made me get up and start doing things. But the point that I was trying to make though is that I could have slipped through the cracks when I got kicked out of school. The infrastructure wasn't there to catch me, to tell me what to do next and how. And where to go next, and who to.
So is that what you want to do for St. George South? Is this part of what you want to do to provide that infrastructure, giving people a second chance?
The safety net, and the safety net must be provided with a structured community groups that know that they're not just here to coach soccer, but if you're coaching soccer, you have to bring in a coach to look at mental health. You have to bring in a coach to look at health and wellness. You have to bring a holistic approach to everything that you're doing. But it's clear that people aren't going to just change what they know unless they're educated to change to something that they didn't know. I probably fumbled with that a bit.
But what I'm getting from you is, you know, it's and this is what happened last night with the other two APP candidates that were on. You know, there was a freshness because we're now, I mean, I haven't, and the solutions, Barbados people as well, you know, and tonight from Alex, you guys are not just talking about fixing a road and fixing a light or, you know, you want to develop the people in the community as whole beings. And I think that is very different. And let me say, we're not hearing it from a lot of the MPs in the traditional parties because we don't get to sit down and talk like this. You know, I'm sure that there are many in there who are like that. But I have to say that I'm totally impressed with these candidates.
Thank you, Marcia. But, you know, I went on my block the other day with the young men and I, you know, sat for a little bit. And one of the gentlemen that was there, who's a more progressive thinker, he's the barber on the block, he said to me that the MP came through and put 2 bottles of liquor on the table and left. And he felt so disgusted and embarrassed by it. He felt like he was, you know, just slapped in the face. But of course, people on the block were happy they had something to drink. It's good to have a good time. It's good to, you know, just be with your friends and de-stress, etc. But when you're looking at the social dilemma that we're in, the crisis that we're in, the crisis with loss of jobs, loss of mental health challenges, the basic domestic violence issues that goes on within our homes, children not getting access to their parents to help them grow and develop because their parents aren't growing and developing. And you create a culture that further this social devolution as an administrative leader is a big challenge for me. So in coming on the block and just dropping some bottles to continue a process without something to elevate, stimulate, motivate, encourage, inspire, some workshop to transform a mind, a thought, something in parenting, something in respect for women, respect for others, something of substance, so that these young men then would have something else to think about. We're just going to pull up on blocks and drop bottles of alcohol. This is where we're at. This is where we're at. And so this furthers a mindset that, so it kind of fuels a fire that really literally destroys the core of the nation. Because then, as Doris is saying here, the idea that if you're running, you got to buy drinks. If you're running, you got to pay bills. If you're running, you want my vote, you got to do this. This is what they have brought, the political class have brought upon themselves. Because at the root of what their needs are, it's the power, the vote, but not necessarily the will or the want to see the development of the community. And so it's a thin line. It's a very, very thin line, because if you want to see the development of the community, many of the things that's done now on a national scale, even by known politicians, would not, should not, and could not be done. So ultimately, I understand why people would say that they don't trust politicians or trust politics or they're not voting. I understand, because I've been there. But I want to encourage you who are listening to know that the only way to change it is to get involved and make your vote count to destroying it, because we have to destroy it. You know, I've heard the stories. I've been on the campaign trail. I've heard the stories about the amount of money that's being dumped into communities. I've heard the stories about the plans that are made prior to elections to create opportunities just for the vote. And I've heard all the stories and I've seen it. There is truth to a lot of it, you know. But this is the dirty practice, as Colin is saying here, of vote buying. But it's more than just vote buying. It's creating a social environment that's unstable and creating deficiencies within the psychology of the youth, who are now growing and learning that this abnormality is supposed to be normal.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it leaves me, I mean, to think that, you know, in our community here, I don't know if you saw the video that was being passed around, where there was a convenience store and two young men went in and they robbed a convenience store. And that's just a few houses down, because we were, you know, a family member of mine was at the convenience store the Wednesday night and they robbed it the Thursday. And I started to call around people in the community and I said, this is an opportunity for us all to come together and do something for our young men. And, you know, I think that's something, you know, listening to you, I can understand why you would be involved in politics, because your heart, you're for the community. You know, you want to see that change. You want to see the change in the young people. You want them to have that second chance. You're about developing the community, because look at what has happened. We're in COVID, and look at what's happening. So tell me about St. George North. South. I'm sorry. St. George South. St. George South. Talk to me about the young people there. Do you know the population of young people that you have there? You know, do you have the demographics?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in my head, though. I have it isolated on a file. I just don't keep the numbers in my head. I prefer to just go look at the file. But yes, it's a pretty big demographic as well. I think it was just like, you know what? Don't let me think, because I don't remember it offhand, you know. But there is a lot of young people, a whole lot. And the reality isn't different in St. George South from St. George North, from St. John. I mean, this is a national issue, and we are a really small island, to be quite honest with you. And the concerns are pretty much the same across the constituencies. In my neighborhood, in the neighborhoods around me, Draxall, Bites Mill, Ellerton, Dash Valley, those neighborhoods, we are still dealing with the same thing: high unemployment, apathy, not sure what the next step is going to be. Literally, just trying to create opportunities out of nothing, and not having enough resources or resource people to help make sure that what you do can be effective enough. And so, just like a cancer, if I may say it, these cells that get together in the body and start to create chaos in a particular organ that they're supposed to be living in. This is kind of what's happening to a degree within some of our communities, where young people don't feel as though they belong, and because they don't feel as though they belong, they the behavior sometimes, or the way they respond to situations, because they haven't been nurtured well enough to respond favorably. So this is generally what's happening across Barbados and its itself.
Right. Wow. The candidates for in APP, how many candidates do you have in the party?
We have about 20 candidates now across Barbados, almost touching every parish. There are one or two parishes that are not touched. We're a group of very strong-minded people, with the intention to make waves across Barbados, whether we win these elections or not. Because I think what is clear to us in the new parties is that we have to leave a legacy. We have to leave a legacy for those young people who are coming behind, who want to see something different from this fighting that goes on to find the administration that will be best serving the interest of the nation. We want to see politics practiced differently. We want to not be a part of that mudslinging that's happening right now, and that will happen until the 19th. We want to be part of the encouragement, part of the empowerment, and part of the group of people who would bring back the voters to the voting booth, because we're losing a large percentage of voters who are literally dissatisfied with the process, because they say there's no difference between one of the other major parties, and they don't know that people are going to give the newer parties the vote. So if you're listening, you're on the fence, and you're dissatisfied with what's been happening for a while now, then your best option will be to allow for a new entity to evolve and be a part of the democracy in such a way that can actually serve the interests of the people a little bit different from how it's being practiced right now. Because one thing is for sure, we are tired and sick and tired of the two known entities behaving the way they do, throwing mud at each other and then expecting the youth to see it and think of it like it's something supposed that is righteous, or something that you're supposed to do. So even the new political players who come on the field, they just continue that journey in those two organizations. They continue doing the same thing because that's how it's done in those organizations. This is how they maintain their following. This is how they capture the vote. So they're just going to do it just to see. There is a way in which you can criticize policy, and you can criticize the things that's happening around you, because it is a democracy and critique is essential. It needs to happen. And the more people who bring themselves back into the process of democracy, the more people who come back to voting and voting for newer entities are getting more involved in democracy, and they're literally regaining that right, or exercising that right, to be critical of policies that don't serve their best interests. And so if you're on the fence and you're listening, it's time to look at one of the newer parties and look at the candidates from the APP for sure, because I think we have a pretty good slate of candidates. I know we have a pretty good slate of candidates, and we have phenomenal leadership. We watch Joseph Atherley battle as a lone ranger in the opposition, and I think he did an awesome job on behalf of the people. He made a bold move, and some may say as not a righteous move, but it was a righteous move to protect democracy. And he stood up firm and long and did what he had to do for the time that he was the opposition leader. And I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have a voice, even though it wasn't given, in my estimation, as much prominence as it should have been given. I don't know what would happen if we didn't have a voice. So then we have the most honorable Lynette Eastman as well,
Mhm.
who is also an excellent leader. She single-handedly, to a large degree, with a group of us, led the UPP to a point of recognition in Barbados in a very short period of time. We put out excellent policies and manifestos on behalf of the people. And so with the combination of the Joseph Adderley and Lynette Eastman, I want people to feel like, people feel as though only one person in Barbados can run this country now. And that is so far away from the truth. It's amazing that educated people would continue to think this way. And so we have Lynette Eastman, who has been phenomenal in her ministry when she was a minister, very well respected, very hardworking, and very efficient person. And so with a team like that, I don't see how we wouldn't be able to get Barbados back on the right footing.
Wow, excellent, excellent. And I think your presentation of your candidates is that coming up. When is that? Because I'm seeing other, they say, oh, but we don't hear anything about the third candidates, the third parties, because we don't because the media. It's not focused. It's like they have eyes for these traditional parties. So what's happening? Are you going to have is there like an event?
Yes, we have a candidate launch that's coming on Sunday, where you would get a chance to hear from our candidates, their impassioned plea. You would hear their real hard stories that they have, and you would hear some of the plans that they have as well for their constituencies. And so on Sunday coming is where we will have a virtual launch. So you don't have to go anywhere. You can sit at home and you can watch our launch from at home. So you just need to stay tuned to the Marcia Week show. I'm hoping that you will be looking at that. And of course, all the candidates will be streaming it as well. So if you can like my page, Everton Hiru Holligan, and you'll be able to follow that on Sunday, so you can get to hear a little bit more about the candidates that we have put forward in this election. And it's a work in progress. We are happy to be able to walk this walk, talk this talk, and be a part of this historical moment in our society. The cost of living is something that's endemic. It's been ongoing for a long period of time now. The policies that we are crafting would help to address some of the cost of living. I know we looked at the importation, because importation and we call the taxes at the port, the duties, help to push that up a lot. And then a lot of how the society is structured right now. So in our policies, as they come out, you would have a little bit more to hear about that, Wayne. I don't have that information to hand right now that I can pull it off the top of my head. But we've looked at the cost of living. We've looked at economic enfranchisement. We've looked at, revamping the new economy as well. And so that manifesto will be out soon to have more in-depth reading. I don't want to preempt it, Wayne, and, so just give us a chance to get that out there.
And as you're saying that, I want to just, because I myself, I'm saying, why don't you guys have this out as yet, and so on. And, my husband he reminds me, but Marcia, remember that, the time frame that is given, this is unusual. It's a snap election, and there's COVID, and there are all these different things. So sometimes we're too hard on the third parties. Remember, the others have the handle, right? So their manifesto is going to be out. Their posters are going to be up. People said to me, I'm in my community and I don't see any third parties poster up. But try to remember, hold a minute.
It's a lot. You have two parties that have over 50 years of experience and infrastructure and funding to do these things. And so I appreciate the public for wanting more from us. But truthfully, we need to be realistic and understand how this works. And this, again, back to my issue, many of our constituents don't know how basic things work within government and within political parties unless they're actively engaged in it. And so, unfortunately, many MPs swindle or skew the perspective of how things are supposed to happen or how things happen. So it literally leaves our people not only miseducated about it, but they're really unclear. Like, It's okay for you to, these major parties to come around and dump a lot of money around election times. Well, whose money is it? Where is the money coming from? Who's funding it? And what happens when contracts have to be given then to satisfy that money that was taken? And so who are going to end up paying the bulk of the taxes to restore this resources that's being given in some contracts that they're paying out 3 and 4 times the amount? So, a fixed election date is something that we have discussed. And it's something that we have talked about from even our last manifesto, our last election, because it helps for us to plan better and strategize better, and it gives even the alternative parties or the opposition parties an opportunity to craft better policies. Right. Because it's not about just being against or rivaling each other. Really what the rival is how do we craft better policies continually so that the citizens become the ultimate beneficiary of our activism in politics. So our activism in politics has nothing to do with you wanting to be in power, but more to do with what you want to offer to the development of the people within the communities. But if it has to do with you maintaining and staying in power, then we know, just as much as this snap election is, that there's a skewed perspective of what leadership is and what running a country is supposed to be about.
Excellent. Well, we're coming almost. We just have a few minutes left. 2 minutes left, Mr. Holligan, and I'm telling you, you schooled us tonight about heart and integrity and motivation and inspiration. You brought so much inspiration to us. Those of us who sit back and say, what they're running, what they want out of this now, but there's just such a purity that is coming through, and that's wonderful. What do you want to say to the people of St. George South? What's your final words to the people of St. George South? What would you say if they're right here in front of you? What did you say?
I would say that from looking at the trajectory that we're on as a nation, there's going to be some really tough times ahead. And the only way that we can literally thrive and survive in those tough times ahead is for community resilience to actually be enforced. So basically, we have to literally depend on each other. And depending on each other is what will build the resilience. To depend on each other, we need to be better organized. To be better organized, we need to remove some of that power that we give to MPs and we give to government officials, and recognize that we have to be a part of the solutions that we find within our communities. And the MPs are there to ensure that when those solutions come, that they can be actioned. So what I would want to say to you is, don't be fooled by being offered jobs in government, because there will be no more government jobs to be offered. Don't be fooled about, getting all this big tax breaks and all that stuff, because just as they did the last 3 years, they'll give it here and then they'll take it over there. So it ends up being just, I guess, an Indian giver, as some people will call it. Just don't be fooled about the fancy talk and the motorcades and the money that's going to be dumped into your constituency, because when the 19th is passed and you now have to start looking to deal with the fallout that will come as a result of the snap elections, because even my youngest cousin, who is not even interested in politics in any way, can look at me and say to me, but everybody know the reason why they call the elections is because things going to get hard. They're going to make things harder for me. That's why they call elections now, so that we can forget by the time voting comes around. So as many people who are calling it like this big move, it's really a very basic move. And so I would say to the people in St. George South, be wary that the motorcades driving through, the money, the red shirts, the music, the yellow shirts, the music, don't get caught up. At the end of the day, you need somebody who's going to sit with you, strategize with you, train you, organize workshops for you, make sure that you are prepared and equipped within communities to feed yourself and to develop businesses that you can then sell to each other in the surrounding constituencies. And in order to do that, you need somebody who's going to be on the ground, committed to ensure that you can grow and develop from the root up and don't fall for the trick of short-term aggrandizement.
Oh boy, that's you're schooling us. And someone here is saying, Mr. He says, "I'm sorry, I'm not in your constituency. You would get my vote. I tell you, you would get my vote now." And I was one of those who said I wasn't going to vote because I'm tired of it. I go and I stand up in the hot sun, and I don't see you. You don't come around, and I was tired of it. But you know what? I honestly, because I was totally touched. Sincerely touched, I should say, by what you presented, and the purity of your heart shone through. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Holligan, for being on. And we would on Sunday, viewers, you'll be able to see all the candidates, the APP candidates, on Sunday. All right. And I think the time is going to be 7:30, and it will be on this platform and on other platforms. And whenever you see anything with third parties, share it. Yes. Share it, because they do not have the same, they're not working access to the financing and the resources and the years that, over the years they've built up structures. They don't have that.
Which is part of the problem. Which is part of the problem, because they're entrenched in doing things a particular way that needs to change, and they're not going to change it because it has brought success for them over a period of time.
Yes, and someone is saying it was refreshing, and that's what happened last night.
Thank you, Rhea.
Yes, as well, with all the Solutions Barbados, the app, and tonight we had Bajan Free Party, and got so much information from Alex Mitchell, and his heart came through of wanting to help the people of St. Michael South. And here we have Hero representing St. George South. And just talking just from his heart, and he just wants to listen, not making these big promises to the people, but sincerely wanting to help. Well, thank you so much for being here, and tomorrow we're going to be on again with more candidates, some Solutions Barbados. Thank you, Hero. God bless you. I know you have to go, lots of things to do. We're going to close now. Thank you so much. But we want to ask you to share this live, share the live, and so that people will get to meet the candidates, and not just, shouting out the things that they're going to do or the things that they did. But you got to meet this man tonight. You got to meet Alex. You got to understand Alex and understand what is his motivation. And that is what we want to use the show to produce, to the people, to bring to the people. So join me again tomorrow. We have more third parties coming your way. And every night we're going to get inspired, because it's so refreshing, guys. So refreshing. God bless you all. Stay safe. Stay safe. They got this virus thing out there. Stay safe. Take care of your families. All the best, guys. And see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.